A battle to the death. Classic albums clash until there's only one left. We rate them, we slate them, discuss them and debate them, analyze the beats and quote the lyrics verbatim. When all is said and done, we put it to the vote and tell you which of them is won. We going all in, so on the sound of the whistle,
let the games begin.
Hello and welcome to Hip Hop World Cup, the podcast that pits golden age hip hop albums against each other in a contest to find the ultimate champion. I'm your host, Danny Phillips, and joining me as ever are Steve Hitchcock. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Danny. Hi, everyone.
And James Larry Luscombe.
Hello.
Hi. So we're back. Welcome to Series 2 of Hip Hop World Cup, back by underwhelming demand. The runaway success of the first series has allowed us to come back and have another crack. This is exciting times, chaps, isn't it? We're back. Series 1 was just a massive, massive success. Tons of messages coming in from everybody who love the show. What are your thoughts on Season 2?
Just how many messages did we get in the end?
I've got a calculator open on my thing. Let me just have a look so I get to carry the one. None whatsoever. But, we know that people are out there listening. We've had hundreds of plays. It's just nobody really wants to get into
if you're out there listening to this and you regard yourself as a fan of this podcast, like, we do want to hear from you genuinely.
We just want to
we just want to know how you came across it and what you think. That's all really.
Yeah, anything.
You could maybe even be a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, just come on, get in touch on Instagram at Hip Hop World Cup or Twitter at Hip Hop World Cup, and just let us know what you think of it. Even if you don't like it, don't be too harsh, but just let us know what you think. But anyway, here we are. Yeah, we're back for Series 2. However, for this series, FIFA has shaken things up a bit and come up with a new format, which they're calling the playoffs. Now, what are the playoffs? I can hear you cry. Well, how does it work? Well, in each episode, we're going to pick 2 golden age hip hop albums to compete against each other in a straight up head-to-head contest, a one-off match. The 2 albums, they're going to be chosen according to a theme, perhaps, or they might just be 2 albums that we want to talk about, or they might just be albums that we've never heard before and want to check out and talk about on the podcast. We'll discuss
an exhibition format, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a one-off, winner-takes-all game, album versus album. Simple. We'll discuss the tracks on the albums, of course, and we're going to be using the TruSkore system as a guide, but more on that later. And then at the end, we'll vote to decide our winner of the 2 albums. Simple. And in this first episode, we've picked 2 golden age albums that none of us has ever heard before, which kind of gives us a chance to check out some hip hop that went under our radars. And the 2 albums we're looking at in this episode are BISKITS CHRONICLE of 2 Losers from 1996 and Capital Tax, a Swoll package from 1993. These are 2 albums that kind of just flew under our radar for whatever reason back when we were buying these albums back in the 90s. I kind of heard of one of them at least, but never bought it, never listened to it. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to just check these albums out and see what we think of them now. So guys, are you expecting a kind of a good contest here? What are your thoughts going into this vital playoff, Steve?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Like you say, I've never heard of either the artists or these albums. So for me, this has been really exciting to get, to listen to something completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So before we get to that, though, before we get to the actual match, as you may have heard on the news, the TruSkore Corporation bought our parent company. So now we're owned by them, which means we're legally obliged to use their scoring system to evaluate the albums. So in case you don't know what TruSkore is, Larry, I know you're our resident TruSkore expert. Do you want to just remind us, because you helped design it?
I've been using it since day one, haven't I? It's basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a scientific methodology used for the purposes of accurately judging objectively the quality of popular music. This is the hip hop module that we use. It was initially developed back in the 60s by some of the finest music theorists of the time, in conjunction with a retired motorcycle mechanic friend of theirs, who helped develop the first 2-stroke TruSkore engine that sort of the modern system's based on.
Absolutely.
It's been through various iterations over the years as technology's changed, and this one is the very latest version 6.0. Some incredible AI technology at work. And I got some big news actually. This one that we're using, I can exclusively reveal tonight. As of next week, TruSkore is going to come pre-installed on all new Nokia handsets. So really bringing it to the masses for the first time.
And that'll just be there delivered straight onto it, whether they want it or not. It will
be like
U2,
the
U2 album,
having their album on the iPod back in the old days.
I love that. I love that. TruSkore for the masses. This is really going to see it take off. Love that. And so obviously, yeah, it's now part of our DNA of the Hip Hop World Cup. So we're going to be using that to sort of evaluate and use it as a guide as we go along. So looking forward to that. Also, what that also means is that we now have a bigger budget with the TruSkore cash. So Steve has actually been able to upgrade his virtual green screen studio with some really key upgrades. Steve, do you want to tell us a bit about those?
Yep. Yeah, it's been really well spent. I've got a fridge for some beers, pretty essential. Nice. Also, I've got a DJ in the background spinning tunes throughout the whole show, but sadly due to copyright, we can't let any of you listen to that.
Can't hear or see any of it. And then that's such a shame because a substantial amount of money has gone into upgrading this equipment for this series. And
loads of money.
But it helps us as we're doing the show, just knowing it's there. But it's really incredible. It's like a warehouse-sized green screen studio, massive, huge facility. With stats and all sorts on the walls being projected, 3D graphics, all sorts of stuff. But
the infographics are going to be incredible. I really wish the viewers could see them. It's all kind of like mocked up battle graphics. So you've got like one artist versus the others, like you might see on like Street Fighter.
It's a bit like it reminds me of Election Night on the BBC a little bit.
Exactly it. Yeah. It's exactly it. Yeah, and in many ways, this is what we're doing.
It's like,
yeah. This is like an election night in many ways.
Yeah.
Larry, I've got a complaint to raise. Though I don't know whether this is something that needs to come to you, but when the engineers came to put this installation or this kind of like patch into the green screen, they told me they had to install an anal probe. Now, I was very, very dubious. I phoned up the customer services and they said it was not a mandatory part of the installation. So got off the phone and they'd gone. So I couldn't kind of have it out with them. But is that normal?
I'm not sure why this complaint's being brought to my door.
But it's funny because they said the same thing to me when they came around to put TruSkore on my computer.
Right.
And they said that you'd sent them. So
all fingers are pointing at you, James Luskin.
This was Nick and Dave.
That's not all they're pointing at.
It was Nick and Dave that came around to install the systems.
I think it was. They're quite rude, obnoxious pair.
Yes.
Yeah, that's them.
Yeah. I can't comment on the specifics of any system that's been installed there. These people are very sexual individuals, and I trust them to do the right thing. Sometimes they go a little bit far, but I'm sure it'll all be fine.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, as long as TruSkore works when we're evaluating these albums, that any other sort of peripheral stuff can just.
That's really all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Any mild discomfort that you two have to go through, kind of while we're getting to that point, I'm sure you can sort of tough that out, can't you?
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
Yeah,
okay, so let's get on with the main action of the day, the playoff.
World Cup. 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 World Cup.
So just to point out, actually, in each episode and in each playoff we're going to have an impartial adjudicator, a guest adjudicator. And this week we've got Adrian Childs here again. How you doing, Adrian?
Hello. You well?
Yep, all good. So yeah, you all geared up and ready to ensure there's a fair discussion about these two albums. That's great to see. Great to have you with us, Adrian. So the first album we're going to be talking about is by a group called BISKITS, who released, I think it's their debut album in 1996 called Chronicle of Two Losers, the first edition.
So
chaps, have you ever heard of BISKITS before? Were these not on your radar?
No, I did a bit of digging in this, Danny. So it was supposed to be released in 96, but it wasn't actually released, I don't think, until 2007. I think there was some kind of issue with it getting released at the time. I think that's probably why it went under the radar.
So it was kind of never came out at the time. It sort of made and intended to be released.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I saw there was I saw the 2007 release, but it said that was a reissue. I wasn't quite sure whether it came out at the time. That's interesting.
Hard to know what to believe on the internet these days, isn't
it? Absolutely. But Ill Biscuits themselves are they're from Petersburg, Virginia, which is quite interesting. You don't get sort of many groups. Obviously, famously, Mad Skills is from Virginia, and they had a single in '94, "God Bless Your Life," which is on the album, which is one we're going to obviously talk about, with a B-side track called "22 Years." But it says in 1995, after they get any attention of Atlantic, the duo signed an album deal and were linked to release 2 more singles, and that's where mysteriously their Wikipedia page ends. So not a lot of material out there about Ill Biscuits. Yeah, what are your thoughts on them as a duo overall, Larry? Let's start with you. And in this album, Chronicle of Two Losers, what are your initial kind of thoughts about this album?
Well, there are some good tracks on there, aren't there? I would say probably musically more so than lyrically. And it's it's got a sound that's really typical of 96. I think it's got really sort of nice chunky drums. It's got your horn stabs, bassy loops. It's a kind of cross between sort of DITC meets beat miners kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a Buckwild track on there, isn't there? And a Lord Finesse, track on there.
Yep.
That ultimately sort of falls short of both of those kind of production camps, although 1 or 2 tracks would quite happily be on sort of high profile albums, I think. That's my main takeaway. I think it's sort of music better than the sort of rapping, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My TruSkores kind of come kind of illustrate that as well. I thought it's quite like a laid back album the first few times I kind of listened to it. I thought it starts much better than the end. It's quite jazzy at the beginning, and then it gets kind of a bit darker as it kind of goes through. I think totally with everything you said there. I think it was actually a really nice surprise, because I sort of approached it with a kind of a, right, let's see what this is all about. And Larry, I mean, you said it being a very 1996 kind of album. It really is. It's very 1996. Really,
and you can really tell because the snares and the kicks and the drums and all that are really crisp and loud. Yeah, it's really clean and like not grimy like earlier albums, like even the Capital Tax album.
Yeah,
it's very quite clean,
quite full, isn't it?
Yeah, quite full, very well produced, nice production. You can really feel like hip hop's moved on a lot at this point. In 95, 96. But I will say though, it's a classic case of never judging a book by its cover, because that cover I found it quite funny. I thought it was an awful cover. The two gentlemen members of Ill Biscuits sort of merged into sort of like a single head.
Yeah. I think they're instantly painting a kind of a bad picture of themselves as well, like calling it Chronicle of Two Losers. I think it's not very hip hop's known for it's very confident kind of braggadocious kind of personalities, and this just kind of sets them up for a bit of a fall from the off, I think.
Absolutely, it's a crap album title.
Quite weird, it is.
Yeah, quite a crap album title, but a decent album, and it's kind of like, I kind of approached it with like having seen the cover and the title. I was like, oh god, this is going to be crap.
But the first track, I think, is really good. Exclusive debut.
I really like that track.
When I heard that, I was like, oh, this might actually be like a really good album. I tell you, that track, it reminds me, I don't know if you two will agree with this, it reminds me of Don't Shut Down on a Player by Ill Al Scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that track.
It's got a really similar kind of construction.
It's the jazzy chords, isn't it? They're kind of jazzy chords, but they sound like they've been sampled.
Yeah.
And just kind of
12-bit crunchy sort of ness to them, and those horns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really nice production. It's right up my street personally, that intro track. And really crisp beats again, like we said, and something so typical, and it runs all the way through this album and also the other album, is the horn samples. With the quarter note delay on them and stuff like that. A really good opening. And when I heard that exclusive debut, like you, Larry, I was like, this is good. This is going to be a really good one. I'm going to really enjoy listening to this album. It does tail off a bit later,
Yeah.
But
The first 3 tracks are all pretty good. They're all pretty smooth. The first 3.
Yeah.
And the sample on it's the Buckwild track is the third one, A Better Day.
yeah, let's move on to that one actually now, because that's an interesting track. Because I looked at the kind of production credits on, I think it was Discogs or whatever it was. And I saw Buckwild. I was like, oh, okay, let's check this out. And it just did not sound like a typical Buckwild beat to me at all. It was a lot more saccharine, kind of with the tinkly pianos and that sort of the surface sample. And I was a bit like, whoa, this isn't Buckwild. Maybe he kind of changed his style as he got a bit later on. I found it really disappointing for a Buckwild track, because Buckwild's one of my favourite producers of all time. Like, he's in my top 5 all-time producers.
Right.
And I just would never have guessed that this was his production. I don't know about what you thought.
I thought that was kind of I'm not a Buckwild expert by any means. I will say that, like, A Better Day and Exclusive Debut are the 2 highest. They both kind of got a 4 from me.
That's interesting.
They got 3.5 from me. I think I was a bit harsher with my judgments there. They both got 4 for production and 3 for the rapping. That's the trouble with this album, is that the rapping is only okay at best.
It holds it back, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't elevate it at all in the album. That's why I think these 2 are losers. They're no longer producing hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like the most gifted MCs I've ever heard in my life, but
they're okay.
They're decent. They're serviceable, and they do a decent job. The rhymes are decent. And they just sort of inject just about enough energy into it to keep you kind of engaged. But in the first maybe half of the album, as it gets later on, you kind of it sort of wears a bit thin. But
see, my perspective on the rapping is that they've got quite good voices. They can, like, their flows are absolutely fine. I just think the lyrical content is just really asinine and forgettable. Like, I was kind of, I've always said that music is always the thing that I really latch onto with albums. That's what kind of makes them my favorite. And I can sort of forgive, lesser lyrical performances, but there's a limit to that. And I was trying to think to myself, like, how would I feel about this album if I'd lived with it for the last sort of 25 years or so? How would I, rate it? But actually, I just wouldn't have lived with it for the last 25 years or so, because there's nothing in there lyrically to keep you, like, coming back and listening. In my opinion, it's just so you can see why they weren't successful, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were just second rate.
Yeah, and when you couple that with, like, mediocre beats as well, which a lot of these are. Yeah, there's a few standouts, but when you couple it, you can see why these were like a album wonder.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just feel like some of the lyrics I sort of could have written myself. They're that bad. Yeah. There's stuff I've actually written a couple of them out, because they're like, I'm making you dizzy like Gillespie. It's just so rubbish for 1996. Yeah. You need to call Tommy to come and try to heal your figures. And the most baffling one for me was, you couldn't hear my style if it was a pair of slacks, I think they say. And I just didn't, I must be missing something there. That's
bizarre. Yeah. Maybe because slacks, they rub together and make a sort of a swishing sound.
Maybe.
No, that wouldn't make any sense.
I don't know. I'm undoubtedly fly like a sparrow. I'm not Cupid, but I shoot more gifts than an arrow, I think they say, which, again, I'm not quite sure what they're getting at there. And it's very simple, isn't it? It's kind of the kind of thing that you come up with when you first start, like, writing raps.
Yeah, it just doesn't stand out in any way, does it? They've got no kind of specific style. Which
is a shame, because they do sound perfectly reasonable.
They could be decent rappers, yeah.
And they're better than, like, some people who kind of got a bit further or a bit more well known. They're not bad. It's just not standout.
You could play this album in the background and not have to listen to it, and it'd be okay. You'd be like, oh, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't. I was quite excited listening to this the first couple of times, but it isn't an album that I'm ever going to come back and listen to.
God, no.
I think it's Exclusive Debut and A Better Day. I'll probably keep on a playlist somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
so do we think that Buckwild didn't produce that track? Because it doesn't sound anything like him.
No, I think he did. I think he wouldn't credit him if he didn't. I just don't think it's a typical Buckwild beat, and I don't think it's a particularly good Buckwild beat. I think it's quite lazy. Like just taking that whole chunk of that
Yeah.
track and, you know, repurposing it. And it's not even that great a sample. It's a bit late 80s soul samples.
Yeah.
Not too keen on that when that sort of stuff.
Chill factor's a bit like that as well.
Yeah. And
it sounds
yeah.
cheap. That sample sounds cheap.
It does, but you can hear they're trying to aim for chart success with that one.
Exactly what
yeah.
I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of got a nice sort of poppy feel about it with a nice hook as well.
Yeah.
You know what they were going for with that one.
Yeah.
Can I just pin you down on Let Them Know? Now, this track, had I heard it and realised it was produced by Lord Finesse before I knew about this album, I would have been all over this album like a rash, because Let Them Know is absolutely incredible. Like, when I heard that, it's a Lord Finesse production.
Yeah.
I've called it my MVP of this album, 5 out of 5 on TruSkore. Okay. Best track on the album. It's one of those tracks I would have like put on a compilation.
5 out of 5?
Yeah, I would have put it on a compilation.
Wow.
It's exactly the sort of hip hop I love. I love Lord Finesse. It's got all his hallmarks, the multi-snare hit stuff. He's got sleigh bells in there. He's got that kind of that snare drum with the kind of metallic sounding snare drum, killer bass line. It's got loads of those horns and stuff drifting in and out of it. It's just, it's classic Lord Finesse. And I would have been all over that if I'd have heard that back in the 90s. And then what's more, the MCs kind of come alive on the track as well. They seem to sort of wake up a bit and they're like all over it. And there's a shouty chorus. And
they probably know that's probably know that because it's Lord Finesse, that maybe is going to get some airplay, and they're sort of hyped up and excited to be on it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's such an incredible album. Just an incredible track. And had they all been at that sort of standard, this could have been a memorable album, a much better album. But
I'm surprised you like it that much. It's one of my lesser rated ones. I think you're right. It has got those hallmarks of Lord Finesse. Like when I first heard that little snare kind of bit at the beginning, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll look it up. And yeah, sure enough, it was Lord Finesse, like his kind of classic sort of thing that he used. But I'm not kind of overly keen on the main sample that they use. Just sort of marked it down a bit for
Horses for Courses.
Are you sure that's a 5 out of 5 track?
Yeah, it is. To me, it's my favourite.
Some sort of recalibration there.
I've got 2.75 for that one.
It's the best. How are you getting decimals on your scores? I've marked it out of 5. each track out of 5. Where are you getting decimals from?
I wanted to give it a 2 or a 3, so I went in the middle.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know. You're obviously hearing a different track than me, because to me that is it's the only one that I would ever listen to again. It's phenomenal. But I'm a massive fan of Lord Finesse though, so his production style is right up my street. As I've said before when we talked about Big L's album, the way he sort of hits the snare like loads of it's just I think
the trouble with me, by the time I get to that part of the album, it's just everything's just getting really stodgy and boring. Just like,
it woke me up when I was going through the album. I was going, oh yeah, God bless you, love. And then this one come on, I was like, oh, finally, this is sort of hip hop I'm into.
I actually prefer Bare Essentials, which comes after the next one after the interlude. That got
talk about that one.
3.5 for me.
It's got a 3.25, and I've written nice little beat, bit wasted on these two.
I've given that a 2 out of 5. That one, I don't like that one at all. I've written paint by numbers hip hop. Lacks energy, boring hook. Don't like the bass line. No, not for me. Not for me. There's a lot of tracks like that here that just kind of are just plodders. They just go along.
They do.
And the MCs do nothing to lift it.
Any decent album either needs to come together and be cohesive. We need things that kind of like elevate it at different points, that like you can look forward to something. And this gets its best track out of the way first of all, and it's just it's just background music then. Background.
Yeah.
Recognize is quite good, the very last track, and I would have put that a lot earlier on the album.
But it starts really well, but then it becomes like dull, I think, as it goes on. It's got like a nice beat and scratches to start off with, and then I just lose interest in it.
I agree. And you can't go wrong with a Q-tip sample on the hook, can you? But it's got a bit more energy, and I did think it was got a nice closer for the album with a nice sort of piano loop, but like you say, it just didn't make me go, oh, this is amazing. Like once the beat kicks in and you kind of get what it's all about and what it's going to be doing for the next 3 minutes, your interest sort of drops off. And
so did you two give the whole album an overall score?
Yeah, represented as a percentage.
As a percentage?
Well, the way I did it, right? I had I gave each track, not including the skits, a mark out of 5, added up all of those scores.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, so how many tracks there were, so you times it by 5 to get, so in this instance it's out of 55, and so it got 31 out of 55.
This is not how TruSkore works.
I did an average.
How do you do an average? How do you do that then without giving each track a score?
You just, if you got it in Excel or something.
No, I just marked each track out of 5.
Oh, okay. Well, you just add up all the scores and divide them by the number of tracks.
Let the TruSkore spreadsheet do its work, Daniel.
Hang on a minute. So you add up all the scores and then divide by the number of tracks? Yeah. So I've got, the TruSkore average for the album is 2.81.
Yeah, but well, there you go then. That's the TruSkore for the album.
You know what? Mine is 2.8 as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I've got 3.1. Right.
How that fares against the other album, we shall find out later. Jeopardy. Cool. So anything else to talk about with this album? I just wanted to mention the 2007 reissue. I think I might have mentioned earlier. It's got the track 22 Years on it, which is another Lord Finesse production, which was on the original version of the album back in when it first came out. But it was re-released in 2007 with like 4 bonus tracks on it, including 22 Years, which Wikipedia describes as highly sought after. And I listened to it, and actually it's really good. It's like Let 'Em Know. And as a result, I was a big fan of it. But obviously, I don't think you two probably would be for what you're saying. But it's not on the streaming sites version. It's not on there.
Okay,
but it's really good.
I had just one little thing to mention about this, and I've got quite a specific gripe with production on a few of the tracks from here on this album, like enough to bother me. And it's that it's sort of, on most of the ones that are produced by Mike Lowe, he's got a habit of picking horn stabs that are ever so slightly out of tune with the main sample.
Yeah.
And it just makes all of his tracks sound slightly like discordant and uncomfortable to listen to. And I therefore instantly want to skip past them. Like, is that just me? Am I being too producery with that?
I don't know what you think, Steve, but the way I look at it is, hip hop is kind of, it's a mishmash, isn't it? And sometimes so many producers they throw in samples that don't quite match match the key or match the note, and that is just part and parcel of hip hop. It's quite raw, it's quite patchwork. It is like that, and I don't think they often care about that sort of thing. You've got a musical ear, so it's obviously bothering you. And obviously they've got a musical ear, don't get me wrong, but that sort of roughness, that sort of contrast and that discordance is what they sometimes are aiming for.
Fair enough.
But I don't think, it doesn't sound like this was deliberate, but it doesn't really usually bother me. But I know
it was just there's something I couldn't quite sort of put my finger on sort of what was bothering me about some of these tracks. And I listening, it seemed to be that, like it just a little semitone out or something on enough of them that I kind of think he must be a little bit tone deaf or something, maybe.
Yeah.
I just can't have that level of appreciation. You've got a much better ear for that sort of thing. I don't understand any of that technical stuff, so I can't comment on that. Which is, I think there's a nice naivety to that. I can just appreciate for what they wanted normal people to listen.
It might be me that's got the tin ear and I'm hearing it wrong.
I don't think so.
Sometimes it's just about a vibe and a feeling, and sometimes I don't always care about clashing notes and stuff. But I mean, if that was enough to put you off, then maybe, was it Mike Lowe needs to go back have a little think about it. But that's cool. Steve, anything else to add about this album you want to talk about? Any other tracks?
Nope.
All good. Well, I hate to end on a downer, lads, I'm afraid, but I obviously doing a bit of research, I saw that Clef Dollars, one of the members of BISKITS, actually died.
In
2012. It was a heart attack. So much love going out to Clef Dollars and all his family. Sad time, sad way to end it. Shame they never got that second album. But this one's going out to Clef.
The other thing that I did have in my notes is that I would have liked to have heard like a second album from them, like to see if they could develop lyrically, because I think they've got all the other ingredients for it.
Yeah, I think there was scope there. I think there was potential, wasn't there?
A year later, just 2 years later, just see what they could come up with. But
wasted potential. I think that's the motto.
But you know what, like, you know, between the three of us, it's got roughly like a 3 out of 5 average. That, you know, that's not terrible. Like, there have been really, there have been big famous albums that we've spoken about that I've rated much lower than that. So,
so we just recap then the scores, what we all gave that one, gave that album overall. So the TruSkore average.
So for me, it was a 3.1.
Okay, Steve.
Well, I've done it two ways. So my TruSkore average is 2.8, but then I've kind of I felt that was too high. So I've actually given it 2.25 as my own kind of like recalibration. So
right.
Well, are you pulling that figure? Is that just the pull out the air figure then?
Well, it's because I did the average. I did an average for the rap and an average for the production. And I looked at it and I thought, I don't know, it felt like it was too high a score, because it doesn't feel like a 3 album to me. It definitely feels closer to a 2 or a 2.5. Because like you say, I think if we measured this against some other albums, it wouldn't be. And maybe because it's my first go TruSkore, I need to kind of, you know, get myself calibrated.
That's a fair enough way of doing it. I don't always stick to the exact score, but I think if it came out as 2.8 and you say 2.2, I'd go like 2.5 on that. Just split the difference would be a fair kind of thing, I reckon.
TruSkore's it's a learning algorithm, isn't it? So it kind of gets used to it. It adapts over time.
Machine learning.
Yeah, it's machine learning. Well, I gave it a 2.81, as I mentioned. So, so it kind of sits kind of somewhere in
well, that's a average of 2.8.
Right. Okay.
That seems pretty fair, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
Not quite a 3, but nearly there.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, that's Ill Biscuits Chronicle of Two Losers covered. It's going up against the album from 1993 by Capital Tax called the Swoll Package. So it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are on that one, guys. We'll be back in a bit.
Come on, y'all. Let the games begin. Come on, y'all. Let the games begin. Come on, y'all. Let the games begin. Come on, y'all. Let the games begin.
Hi, and welcome back to Hip Hop World Cup. We're back for season 2. We are talking about 2 albums, Ill Biscuits Chronicle of Two Losers and Capital Tax the Swoll Package. They've gone up against each other in a playoff. Now we're about to talk about Capital Tax the Swoll Package from 1993. Quite a sort of a low-key album, one of those for kind of heads in the know, really. It wasn't a widely known album. I remember seeing it a lot back in the hip hop magazines, you know, like Hip Hop Connection and The Source back in the day. Never checked it out. So that's exactly what we've been doing here, looking at Capital Tax's album. A little bit about Capital Tax on Discogs, which I'll quickly go through now. They're from Oakland, California, same place as I think it's Hieroglyphics come from, and the Bay Area, Too Short, E40, all those lot, Dell, all them lads. Yeah, all them lads. And the group consisted of rapper Total Mind Devastator.
Yep.
A gentleman
TMD.
called DJ Cool Al. So I just laugh because we know somebody called Al. That just made me laugh. DJ Big MC and Scruff. And here it says that along with dancers Bozy and Loose Dookie. So they
Oakland groups liked having dancers, didn't they?
They did like having dancers. It was
Digital Underground, famously Tupac was one of their dancers, wasn't he?
Absolutely. And
MC Hammer.
MC Hammer, he liked to dance, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I don't know sort of what level Bozy and Loose Dookie were in the dance world, and how sort of I've never seen any videos of them. No. But I imagine they were pretty good to have sort of hooked up with Capital.
I think you have to be good, like in that sphere.
Absolutely. And shouts going out to DJ Big MC for the name. I mean, that he's got it all. He's got it all in there, hasn't he? Yeah, that could be anyone. Okay, so yeah, Capital Tax, the Swoll Package, decent album, I'd say. Very 1993. Very 1993. Shouty choruses.
Yeah.
Funky, up tempo, quite a frenetic production, which was quite characteristic of the music that was coming out around then.
Yeah.
Loads of sounds, loads of samples packed into every track. I quite like it. Larry, what do you think of this?
Yeah, there's so many parallels with Ill Biscuits, I think. The first one being I was really encouraged by it to start with. Good track sort of out the gate. The beats are nice and funky. It's sort of quite reminiscent of like kind of EPMD kind of stuff, I thought. Don't know if you go along with that.
Steve, agree with that? Because I know you're an EPMD fan.
No, no, I don't think so.
Fine, okay, fair enough.
Well,
You're the expert, but...
What did you think of it then, Steve, overall?
Yeah, well, it's interesting what you're saying about, it sounds like it's from 93, and the same was for Ill Biscuits as well.
Yeah.
I think I went out for a run the first or second time I listened to these albums, and I was trying to picture in my head which year they were from, and I actually said 93 for this album. I was like, oh yeah, blimey. And I don't know how this got overlooked in 93, because I actually really like this album. It's definitely one that I'm going to come back and listen to. And I think it's just, I don't know, it kind of like just grabs me in lots of different ways. I think the rapping is pretty decent. It's not fantastic, but it's okay. I think the production's pretty good. You two definitely know more about this than I do, but I actually really like the kind of bass lines that you used all the way through the album. I thought it was quite funky, quite jazzy, and also lots of little samples that I recognise. It felt like lots of them had been used by the other groups or at different times, so there was like a little bit of like trip down memory lane for that as well. And I thought it was pretty decent. Nothing exceptional, but I also wondered, like, how did it get overlooked? Because I think there's enough decent like stuff in here for it to have got kind of like more airplay and more.
I think because it got drowned out probably in 93, because there were so many albums like this out in 93. It reminds me very much of albums like Original Flavour and Trends of Culture, Rumpelstiltskins, Rumpelstiltskins, sorry. Just these kind of albums. Like,
a bit like Ill Biscuits, where it didn't get like marketed very well, because it's like the Swoll packaged by Capital Tax, and that doesn't really kind of fit with their kind of image very well, I don't think.
No, I just think, obviously, perhaps not marketed very well, but it just got lost in the crowd. And I think it didn't do enough to kind of stick its head above the parapet and go, this is really is an album. It didn't kind of make that step up to get that mainstream recognition.
I would personally say it's simpler than that. I think it suffers the exact same fate as Ill Biscuits, in that just the rapping isn't on point enough.
Yeah,
the rapping itself is fine. It's just, again, it's the lyrics. Like, there's nothing memorable.
Nothing exceptional, is there? Yeah.
He's got such a cheek calling himself the Mind Destroyer. Like all
Devastator, get it right.
Devastator. I thought it was Destroyer. That's what I've got written down here. Anyway, but all he devastated for me was my kind of enthusiasm to listen to it all. Really, just one of those albums that just by the sort of just past the halfway line, you like say, yeah, I get it. And I don't really need to.
I disagree a little bit. I think the more that I've listened to the album, the more I've kind of like come to appreciate some of the things that he's rapping about. Because it starts like, Danny, I think this is probably your favourite track, Mr. Wonka.
Nailed it in one. Yeah, it's my MVP for the album.
The first time I listened to it, I'm like, what's this all about? And then obviously listen to it a bit more, and it's kind of a track about making sure his penis performs properly when he's out and about.
It's a very odd subject matter for a rapper, isn't it? Very bold.
Let's dig into it. Yeah, so Mr. Wonka, I really like it. It's my favourite track. It's a great opener, I think. It's got really good energy to it. I love the sample and the drums. I just think it all works really well together. Proper head nodder. And I personally, we're saying they're not great MCs, but I personally find the rhyming really good on this one. I think it's a really good flow, and the subject matter about not being able to, it's like erectile dysfunction, basically.
Yeah.
We should have got Pele to talk about it, shouldn't we?
You will not hear other rappers talking about this. This is a man who's comfortable with himself.
Absolutely, yeah. And loads of inventive names for their wanger, and lots of, talking about it and sort of different scenarios where it's a problem and it not quite working. And that's something you're quite familiar with as well, Steve, isn't it? You must have really connected with this song.
Yeah, it's like my own personal anthem now.
Yeah, Is it the first hip hop track about erectile dysfunction?
I can't think of another track like it.
Must be like, who else is gonna? But like, he's not boasting about it, but like, no one else is gonna admit to that, are they?
Absolutely not. No. Oh, yeah, it's quite a bold move. So I was kind of like grabbed by that initially, was when the album came in, but
and it is an earworm. I think the production is definitely one that I've got stuck in my head now, just going over and over again. So yeah, it's a really good track. I TruScored this 4 out of 5.
Yeah, me too. Exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you give it, Larry?
Just a 3 for me.
Yeah. Not feeling it as much.
No, I mean, it's just kind of, it's a 3 straight down the line, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
What are you looking for? What is it that elevates it for you? Like, I'm interested to know what.
Like a 5 would have to have like exceptional music and exceptional raps as well. Like a 3 could have there are some on the BISKITS album that scored a 3, for example, that are really good beats, but just raps that you just can't kind of latch onto at all. Like nothing sticks in your mind. So I try in those instances just to kind of score them, down the middle, really. I don't sort of separately rate them for rapping and beats, but just give them, try and sort of give an overall kind of get an overall feel for each track, really.
Yeah, fair dues. So any other standouts then, Steve, in the album?
Well,
so we like Mr. Wonka.
Yeah, because what I was saying is I think there's enough kind of like interesting content on this album to make it like worth going back to. So I like We Pals. It's got that Friend sample, which is quite a popular sample, but again, it's a bit of an earworm. The Can You Dig It track, that was definitely a massive grade to start off with. I was like, I don't know if
that's my favorite, I think.
Can You Dig It?
I didn't really like it to start off with, but now I love it. It's got that I don't know, some kind of pipe sample in there.
Yeah, really sort of weirdly processed horns or something in there. I really like the way they sound. It's quite unusual.
Yeah.
And my favorite track then after that is the Masher. I love that track. That is absolutely my favorite one. Just the lovely loops, lovely samples, and it feels like a proper kind of like, I don't know, 93 cut as well.
Yeah, I've got 3 3.5s in a row, which are Can You Dig It, Naughty Natural, and the Masher.
Yeah, I like Naughty Natural.
Yeah, I gave Naughty Natural 2.5 because it's one of those that has the obligatory dancehall reggae singer on the chorus. Admiral Dancehall, Don Jaguar, all of them lads. Whenever I hear that, I'm sort of put off by it. I don't really like them. I'm not a fan of Naughty Natural, but
it's all right there. And then Giving It Back, I think that's another nice theme. I think they really have thought about the content of their raps a lot better than kind of BISKITS, and another nice bass line on that track.
Yeah,
I thought with Giving It Back, the subject matter, I just thought quite simply that they have not earned the right to write a track about not forgetting where you come from when you become successful. Like that's a second album at kind of at the earliest.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that one, I gave it a 3, but I've got like sounds similar to the others, average beat, nothing that stands out, bit dated, but good horn sampling. Their horn sampling game is on point in that one. I really like that.
Yeah.
And just coming back to which one was it? Can You Dig It? I've got the word mediocre written there as well. And I noticed for some reason this lyric stood out to me. It goes, "As I pop the cork on the bubbly, the shit sounds lovely. We rugging like rugby."
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, hang on, did he say rugby?
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty bad, really. But
it's pretty weak stuff, isn't it?
Pretty weak stuff. Yeah. And what else we got going on here? There's a song called "I Can't Believe It," which was released as a single. I gave that 3 out of 5. Did you like that one, Larry?
I gave it a 2. I gave it a 2.5, just because it. I can't remember the beat, to be completely honest. I've written here that it's sort of average. I think it kind of presents itself as like a story-based track, but it's not interesting enough to kind of hold your attention, really. Like, a good story raps start off really interesting with like I got a job with the mob selling keys or something, and you want to know what happens next, whereas this is just like, well, who cares?
Yeah. And you got your mandatory weed smoking song "We Pals" as well.
Yeah,
perfectly serviceable beat, but
Yeah.
more good horn sampling. But it's kind of like it's like ticking boxes, isn't it? Weed song.
When I kind of listening to this, and seeing how many people there were like on the album cover, I wasn't sure about. And before I'd read anything about them, I didn't know sort of how many rappers there were in there. And I was thinking to myself, is this several rappers or the same rapper who all kind of sounds the same?
Doing different voices.
Doing sort of slightly different voices. Yeah. It's quite sort of disjointed. And I don't know, it's just, again, like with just another parallel they have with Ill Biscuits is that they just don't ultimately make the cut. And I think with both projects, it's kind of, it's pretty decent producers, like lumped in with kind of subpar rappers, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those good, not great sort of affairs, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like so many albums from this era. Just they all kind of come and go.
It's not a crap. It's not bad. It's not bad.
No,
it's really not. It's just not good either.
No,
well, I just disagree. This is definitely I'm going to come back to this. The production is definitely better than the rapping.
Yeah.
But only just. And again, it may be a similar thing to I think what you were saying, Larry, for Biscuits. Wouldn't it have been great to have heard another album from this group? Because did they do it? Actually, I haven't even checked.
Well, funnily enough, this lot have done a second one. It was I only listened to a little bit. It was in 2006, and it is just the worst like 2006 nonsense you can possibly think of.
I won't check that out.
You either like it or you don't. You either like it or you don't. The album.
That's the name of the album. Yeah. And I didn't.
No. All right, I won't even bother checking.
Yeah, I like listen to it. You'll see what I mean by like 2006. But it sounded like a sort of a 2003 album in 2006. Just awful.
Right.
All of the hallmarks of that era of production that I absolutely hate.
Yeah, but we're being a bit down on this album. I know you like it. You're a bit more positive, Steve. But there's some good things about it, like for instance, let's like the track Make Some Cash. I gave it 4 out of 5. I think that was really good. Nice jazzy chords, nice horns, that sort of. So there's a good Slick Rick sample in there. I quite like that one. There's enough decent tracks on here to make it kind of worth listening to. And it's kind of like the MCs are proficient. They're not spectacular, but they flow on the beat well with sort of purpose, and they do a good job. I think I just wonder if I'd have heard this and bought it in '93. It might have been one that I could have sort of appreciated more. I just think it's one of those, going back to it now, listening to it, you kind of see its flaws. But I think if I'd had this at the time, I might have liked it a lot more.
That was my overwhelming like disappointment. That this didn't get more kind of recognition at the time, because I think we would have liked it more. It's like this group had such a crap A&R. It was just. It would have been we'd have had a different feeling about it.
I think so. About it. It's also just a little reminder, that it's hard to come to an old hip hop album and fully appreciate its quality without the context and the impact it had at the time. It's very much tied up with nostalgia and age. You can't fully appreciate sort of how it fit into the landscape at the time.
Yeah.
But all we can do is step back dispassionately and look at this album and how it sounds compared to others.
I think that with that being said, I would be really, really surprised if it was in anyone's top, 10 to 15, even if they'd listened to it back then. I don't see it breaking through to many people's top albums, apart from just, in the same way, Danny, you really like sort of like your Trends of Culture or something. It's like that one album that no one else really digs, but you kind of have a soft spot for. I think maybe be a few people like that, but I reckon if all hip hop lovers ran this through their personal TruSkore, I don't think you would get much more than like a 3 out of 5 across the board for everyone, really.
Yeah, I think this album has like enough good tracks to make it interesting to listen to, but for it to be like a memorable album, you need a decent single at least, don't you? You need 1 or 2 tracks that are like properly good.
And like Danny said, you're up against so many good albums and sort of singles and crews from this era. Someone like this is just not quite good enough.
It's one for the heads, I think.
You could compare this to like I've again not an expert on the man, but I sort of thought that he's a bit of like a subpar Redman, like that kind of delivery, and
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
but if you compare him to Redman, like there's just no kind of
Who are you talking about?
Like the guy like
Total Mind
TMD
Devastator.
from
Total Mind Devastator.
Not DJ Cool Al or DJ Big MC. You mean
no?
Total Mind, yeah.
This is TMD. Just doesn't quite make the grade, unfortunately.
I gave the rap 3 out of 5 on TruSkore, which isn't like awful, but it's just average, isn't it?
Yeah.
Funnily, just above average.
Funnily enough, one of the weird notes I've written down, and I don't know if I agree with myself, is it says reminds me of Das Effects in places without the diggity. Without the diggity stuff from the Dead Serious era.
I didn't write that down, but I had that same thing. And that was why I was thinking of sort of EPMD and like, what was it, Death Squad? And just that kind of, it just reminded me of like an EPMD, a Redman, a Das Effects, that kind of, in that kind of sphere, but just doesn't touch any of it.
No, doesn't have enough character to kind of reach those heights.
No, absolutely. Okay, and just an interesting little footnote. I don't know if you heard In Memory Of, the track In Memory Of uses the same sample as Bible by Jizza.
Okay.
Our Love Has Died by the Ohio Players.
I didn't.
I thought you might have picked that one up. Certainly you, Steve. I know you both love that track by Jizza.
I didn't notice it. That In Memory Of, though, that's just a little skit track.
Yeah, it's a skit track, but I just heard it. Oh, hello, that's I recognise that, and I realised it was the same as that.
That passed me by.
Yeah, cool. Right, any other business on this one, or should we move on to the vote?
Do we reveal our true score for it?
Well, we can do. It doesn't necessarily reflect what we're going to vote for. So yeah, let's go for it. I mean, this one calculated as a 2.91 for me.
Okay,
2.91.
Yeah.
Steve?
I had 3.4, but I recalibrated it to a 3 because I thought 3.4 was too high for this album.
Okay. Well, do you want to split the difference and go for 3.2? Would that be fair? Do you think?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go with your lower?
I think 3.2 is a very fair score for this album.
Okay. Well, I gave it a 2.7, which makes the average 2.9.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was it for? I think it was 2.9 for the other lot.
2.8.
Yeah. No. It's 2.9 by my reckoning. Oh no, sorry, that was when I uprated Steve's score to 2.8. It was actually 2.5, wasn't it? So
you're listening to Hip Hop World Cup.
So yeah,
the new maths-based hip hop podcast.
So despite the
2.8 and 2.9, so it's a very closely run thing.
I should just stress at this point, dear listener, that these scores and these numbers are just a guide. They're just what we're using to sort of contextualize our thoughts, sort of crystallize it somewhat. It's not necessarily going to be reflected in the album that we vote for. That's right, gents, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So we're obliged to do that now.
We're obliged to do that. If we don't, we will be taken off air. So you just have to permit us to do that. Right, well, that all sounds great. So let's go away. Let's contemplate. I'm going to sort of sit down with Adrian Charles, just check we've done everything above board, our official adjudicator. And when we come back, we're going to vote and we're going to find out who's won this playoff in episode 1 of Hip Hop World Cup Series 2. See you in a bit. Hello, welcome back to Hip Hop World Cup. We're just been locked in a room for 3 hours with Adrian Charles. He's been telling us about why he's got a urinal in his house. We won't go into it here. It's a bit too, we won't get bogged down in that now. But we've all been contemplating and going over our scores for the 2 albums, which are BISKITS CHRONICLE of 2 Losers and Capital Tax, the Swoll package, to decide which one is going to be our champion in this episode. So should we go straight in for the vote, gentlemen? I want you to both give your vote, and I want you to give your reasons for it. And let's start with you, Steve.
I think I feel obliged to kind of like follow my TruSkore here, because I put so much effort into collating averages, and I think BISKITS got a very fair kind of 2.5, which just very plain, middle of the road album, a bit samey, needed a bit kind of more some changing up through the album. So not an album I'm going to go back to. And Swoll package got 3.2, which is not a bad score. I think the rapping isn't bad, just nothing exceptional. Needs a few more standout tracks, but it's definitely an album I'm going to go back and listen to again. So for me, although the scores are quite closer than I thought, it's going to be Capital Tax for me.
That's one vote for Capital Tax. Larry, what are you going for?
I'm going for Ill Biscuits.
Interesting.
No!
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Purely because it's more my era. I just prefer the music of it's just smooth and jazzy rather than sort of funky and upbeat. I like both styles, but just a bit more to my kind of solid sonic palette.
So you're going against your TruSkores.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that borne out by your TruSkore figures?
Yeah, my TruSkore for Ill Biscuits was 3.1, and it was 2.7 for Capital Tax.
Interesting.
And I'm happy to kind of stick. I'm happy to go with that.
Well, that's put things in the balance then. Nicely poised at 1-1 in this crucial playoff between Ill Biscuits and Capital Tax. That's not a sentence I thought I'd ever say. So, okay, where I'm coming from at this is that I think when I first started listening to Ill Biscuits and the first few tracks came in, I was like, wow, this is right up my street, exclusive debut, chill factor and all that. And I thought, yeah, this is going to be good, but it tails off, becomes a bit dull. The MCs don't do anything to lift it. And it's a similar sort of situation with Capital Tax. I've started listening to it, Mr. Wonka, loved it, and Make a Move Y'all came in and it had good energy. And I thought, yeah, this is another one I like. And it kind of tailed off again. But I think, evaluating them both, I think I am going to stick with my TruSkore, and I'm going to go for Capital Tax as well, because I think it's just a bit more up my street. It's very much reminiscent of some of the albums that I love that are in my collection, like Trends of Culture, Rumpelstiltskins, that sort of 93 high energy flavor, like shouty choruses, all that sort of thing. It's a bit more up my street. Don't get me wrong, Ill Biscuits, there's some really good stuff about it. I do like that kind of 96 style production with the crisp snares.
I was expecting you to go for that one.
Yeah, I was expecting to go for it as well, certainly when I first started listening to it. But it just didn't have enough, like even with Let 'Em Know on there. Like I could happily just take Let 'Em Know and that would be the only one I listen to, maybe exclusive debut. Whereas I can picture myself sort of popping Capital Tax on and maybe listening to it all the way through. Again, this is just kind of like a gut thing, not necessarily based on the figures, but I just think Capital Tax just feels a bit more up my street. I don't know. I might be wrong. I don't know. It's a difficult one, but yeah.
You're not wrong. You've chosen well.
Yeah, I think
that's with your TruSkore as well. So
that's with my TruSkore as well. Yeah, and I think I'm happy with it. I'm looking at my sort of what I thought about Ill Biscuits and like the Let 'Em Know track, and there's some great stuff on there. That's like on paper you would say it's my sort of thing. Yeah, and I can see why you're surprised, Larry. But I just think as an album, as a package, as a Swoll package,
yeah,
Capital Tax is a slightly better album.
I will say as well, I listened to and rated these albums in that order this morning, and I wonder if I'd listened to Capital Tax first, maybe it would have scored a bit higher. Maybe I was just a little bit kind of annoyed with having
a bit fatigued, don't you?
It's like, fatigued at that point, maybe
that was a mistake. Yeah, maybe it was.
I'm just pleased to have chosen the winning album for a change.
Yeah, how's that? How do you feel, Steve? How's that feel being on the winning side?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna have some sort of celebration. In fact, look at the green.
Wow,
fireworks,
it's going
champagne.
crazy.
Oh, it's amazing.
And it's
money well spent.
And it's now scrolled onto some of your holiday snaps, Steve, which is quite distressing.
Don't look at those.
Is that you?
That is not a mankini. That is
in the
not
shower.
a mankini.
So okay, well, we'll leave that. You might need to sort that out, Steve. That's going to become decidedly unpleasant in a minute. Cool. Well, there we go. Capital Tax, the Swoll package is our winner for this playoff. Deserved winner, I think. Good winner. But what do you think? I mean, what do you think of our winning album? Do you agree? Disagree? Or maybe you just want to, do you want to share your thoughts on 90 in general? If either way, just hit us up on Twitter, Instagram. Let us know what you think of the podcast. As we said earlier, we want to know what you guys out there think of it. Do you, are these the ramblings of three madmen, or are we saying stuff that you actually care about? So let us know what you think about the podcast. But for now, thanks for listening, and join us again for the next episode. Peace.